It is a beautiful new week, and I'm delighted to welcome you to Newspaper Review today, Monday, the 28th of June, 2021. I am Sarah Oswansa. I trust you had a restful weekend, and I trust your week has started on a beautiful note already. On the Newspaper Review this morning, we'll be taking a look at major stories happening on the front pages of several papers as we unveil and unravel major incidences that happened over the weekend. We would be talking about a statement made by the former president of Nigeria in person of Olusegun Obasanjo, who talked about Nigeria's population becoming a liability. This is coming just after the Senate president of the country described the country as a poor country. We'll have that conversation. Also, the Anambra APC primaries was held yesterday, and the emergence of Senator Andy Uba as the candidate has generated mixed reactions as they have said the process was free and fair. Also on the paper this morning, we have a conversation surrounding open grazing as a senator has backed the federal government of Nigeria in regards to going back to getting the grazing roads that would help herdsmen to, that will guard them in the process of transporting their cattle and cows to different parts of the country, even as Nigerians have kicked against that particular move. So an interesting story as well is the conversation that we have on the front page of The Punch, how the prominent and eminent Nigerians have warned the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, as well as the European Union against borrowing Nigeria money, saying Nigeria at this time was not acting like a sovereign state. We'll take a look at all of this as our guest will be joining us very soon in the studio to continue the conversation. Right now, we have our guest live in the studio to, talk about certain topics with us in person of Henry Shofowora. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Amazing morning, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming all the way down here. So I would like us to begin the conversation with the story that has to do with Nigeria's population, a statement made by the former president saying Nigeria's population, if not managed properly, is now a liability. What do you make of that?
Well, the former president is absolutely correct. I just realized that any time the president is involved in any little meeting, he forms an headline. So, but what he said is absolutely correct. But he also made further that it should not be a disadvantage, knowing fully well what our population is. We can take advantage of it. China is bigger than us. They have more population. But the economic impact of a large population without a clear direction can be woeful on the entire country. So he has said that if by 2050 something is not done, we'll be the third largest population in the world. But the first thing I like to clarify, I usually say is that how many are we? The last time census was conducted in this country is over how many decades?
2006.
How many decades ago? So we need a population census, one. That is very important because that begins to tell us about the demographics and how we can apply all our economic indices to ensure that we take advantage of the number of people that we have in the country, which is very, very important. That population, no matter how much we shy away from it. Unfortunately, President Obasanjo was also had the opportunity to have done that. He didn't do it. So we will still hold the president a bit responsible for where we are now. Because at the point when China was able to know their population and how much they were growing, they were able to guide that, okay, each family must not have more than 4 children or 3 children. Recently, they went back on that to say that, to encourage people to have more children. So until we have that direction, statistics to guide us, we will not take advantage of that population number that he has mentioned, which is very important. So that number will be a great disadvantage until we are able to appropriate it statistically and see how that can help us to improve our economy. Okay,
you've touched on that. And also, according to report and economic analysis, it is said that Nigeria as a whole is not using more than 20% of their land mass. Now, I'd like to ask, what measures do you think the country as a whole can put in place to fully maximize the resources that we have as a country? Because, Nigeria is classified as the giant of Africa. So what measures can the country put in place? What steps can they take now to fully maximize these resources?
Excellent. We have good arable land, but unfortunately, we are also battling insecurity. So any measures we want to put in place now, we must first tackle insecurity to maximize that land use, which is very important. We are all concentrated in some specific areas of land, and as a result, it's a great disadvantage where we'll have to take advantage of every land mass that through agriculture, through other infrastructure development or other industries, but we are not doing that. So one of the things that we can do is to first help to curb insecurity. Once that is done to a great extent, then we can take advantage of the land mass, of the arable lands that we have in the country. That's one of the fundamental things that need to be dealt with right now, to take advantage of the land that we have and use it well and appropriately for economic benefit. Then security must be available. Otherwise, people will keep on coming to the cities. People will keep on looking at where is my business safe? Where are the people in? Because economic factor of the population or the land is as a result of how accessible is that land is to the city, what is transportation to that area. So those things are indicators of how we are able to use those lands that are available to us. And if there is no security in a particular areas of land, even though it's arable, we cannot take advantage of that. Everybody will move to where they are safe.
All right. So
that will be our major challenge.
Okay. Quickly, before we move on to another issue entirely, you talked about a particular measure China put in place in terms of their population control, which was giving, each family a specific number of children they can have, even though they have reviewed that particular law. Nigeria as a whole, do you think that particular law would be effective? If yes or no, what measures do you think the government can put in place in terms of population control specifically?
Either we like it or not, being Africa or otherwise, everyone try to shy away from population control. Birth control is inevitable eventually. It's one of the things that will be used. Because if we don't do that, what other measures can be done? Number one, people are suffering from inability to cope with food and the likes of that. So if you don't reduce the number in your household, then there will be a challenge for you to cope with that. So birth control will be one of the things that will be used eventually, because maybe you give to a family, no family must have more than 3 or the likes of that. But before we even get there, like I said initially, do we know how many we are? How many are we? It's still that's the crux of the matter.
In fact, there are speculations that Nigeria's population is being inflated, that we don't have the accurate number of people in Nigeria.
It's very likely. You know why? This is why we are talking about how many of our arable land is occupied. We are all concentrated in the cities and some local area. You find a lot of arable lands that are not occupied. So where is these 200 million people are? So it calls for a lot of questions, because every time we look at the last time our population was counted, everybody begin to extrapolate and believe that, but that is not right. What is the death ratio to the birth ratio? Right. Those are the things that need to be looked at. Because these days, everybody just go and pick up a birth certificate. All these areas are control areas. So everybody just go and pick up a death certificate. No, these are the areas where they'll help you in controlling your population to actually know how many were born each month, how many died each month. By that so doing, then you can use those data to plan for the economic benefit of the entire population.
Okay, so I think at this point, it is really, really safe to say getting a national census is the way to
Which is inevitable.
Right now.
Yes.
Okay, still, I would like to link this with a statement, a conversation that came up with eminent Nigerians asking the International Monetary Fund, the European Union, as well as the World Bank not to, give loans to Nigerians. And just last week, the Senate President made a statement that Nigeria is poor. What do you make of this?
That's an obvious statement anyway. We joined the other eminent Nigerians, and I know these are in the heart of every Nigerian to say that we know Nigeria is poor, 1. 2, the eminent Nigerians are saying what is obvious.
Okay.
It's obvious. And looking at the list of the eminent Nigerians as well, these are ex-leaders. These are former leaders. about 129 of them. These are former leaders who have led us maybe through the military era and the likes of that, who are also contributors to our present debt profile, directly or indirectly. So they have not said anything new, but something must be done. Because looking at what the Debt Management Office published recently, for 2020, December 31st, December 2020, the debt profile of Nigeria was put at about
over 32 trillion naira.
About 32.9.
Yes, trillion.
But
naira.
at the end of first quarter 2021, it's 33.9.
Yeah.
A bit of increase has happened there as a result of the debt stock profile of the SOCU, the federal government bonds for the states and the federal government itself. And this has increased our debt profile. And it's scary. So what the eminent personality are saying is that they have declared that there must be a hold up on raising funds. Don't forget that in May, federal government still presented 2.3 billion
Yes.
to the National Assembly to say that we still need more funds. Because even though we are saying some things, I won't say we are saying things proportionate to the amount of money that we are getting. If this thing should go to recurrent expenditures, then it is scary. We may get poorer. Because some of the infrastructure that we are buying this money for agriculture and from other industries, if you are not seeing them coming into reality, it becomes very worrisome. These monies cannot be used, or this capital cannot be used for recurrent expenditure. That's why the eminent persons are actually worried. So they are seeing the Nigerian project as a failed project right now until something critical and a state of emergency is declared concerning our economy. We should stop borrowing, in my view.
Okay, so they tag Nigeria as a country of questionable sovereignty. Now, what do you think the country as a whole right now can do to generate funds so we don't have to resort to borrowing, at least for a lengthy period of time?
Okay. Internal generated revenue, number one.
Yeah.
States must look inward. And Lagos State has been doing excellently well on that. Even though their debt profile increased by 507 billion in the first quarter, but they are doing excellently well. We can see what can translate to money. A lot of states had to look inward. States like Jigawa reduced their debt a little bit this first quarter, but we need to look at, instead of going for FAC every month, every state must now realize that, is it coffee I can produce? How do I export it as well? But also the question is that most of the states that we have needed to use their land, the land that is unsecured at the moment. So it's a major challenge to even how do that be, but also the Finance Act of 2020, if fully implemented, will also help in this regard. And we can see some of the impact. As at this morning, I still got a report to say that there's a very insignificant reduction in debt from a 4.19 trillion naira to about 4.2, which is very insignificant, but it's a way forward to show. And this was helped by the finance bill of 2020, so which is supporting that and helping. But internal generated revenue was being called. This is not a good time for one to be a governor, if you ask me. You know why?
Why? Because
if you are not industrious, if you are not entrepreneurial in your thinking, and you just want to be governor for being governor's sake, it will be challenging for you to economically get your states out of the economic doldrum that we are in. So I don't envy any of the governors right now, because most of them actually were not prepared economically. They were there to just ensure that politically, I would say, to make sure that, okay, I am the governor, but unfortunately, that's why they are finding challenges now to meet their economic needs in each state. So
it's time for governors of each state to look beyond the political duties and responsibilities.
Excellent.
And go the economic way.
They have to look for a technical economic team to help them out to make sure that they raise money and they are more productive.
Okay. All right. So I have more questions and we'll have more conversations to have on the newspaper review, but we'll go on a very short break. When we're back, we'll take a look at them. To stay with us.
Everyone wants to be informed. But in a century where seasoned journalism is the order of the day, it is not far-fetched why fake news is rampant. Here are a few steps to identify fake news.
Step 1. Consider the source. Click away from the story to investigate the site, its mission, and contacted information. Step 2. Check the author. Do a quick search on the author. Are they credible? Are they real? Step 3. Check the date. Reposting old news stories does not mean they are relevant to current events. Step 4. Check your biases. Consider if your own beliefs could affect your judgment. Step 5. Read beyond headlines. Headlines can be outrageous in an effort to get attention or clicks. What's the whole story?
Ask the experts. Before you share that story, ensure it is not fake news.
Glad to have you back. We still have Henry Shufora in the studio this morning talking about major happenings on the front pages of the paper. Let's move away from the conversation that has to do with Nigeria's debt. Let's go to something that has to do with the media. We have a story here that says, prevail on federal government to withdraw media bills, SERAP begs commission. Now, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project and that SERAP have asked the federal government, and they've asked the African Union body to speak with the federal government as well as the National Assembly not to pass the bill that seeks to gag and stifle press freedom in Nigeria. Let me first get your opinion on this particular media bill.
No country can actually make progress, or no government can make progress without the fourth realm, which is the press and the media. So an attempt to gag the press is anti-democratic, and it will not help the present situation in the country. It's also against our constitutional rights. Whatever they are doing, for them to do that, somebody must go back to the Constitution to look at what they want to do. If that is not done, a lot of things will go wrong. People will protest against this. This is really anti-democratic for media to be gagged in this form, because they were asking for, one of the things they were asking for was that the qualification should be increased,
and the
punishment also should be. And these are, you have put the qualification for a governor to be schoolsat, president to be schoolsat. Why must you have a professional as a journalist? The journalist or anyone who is able to provide good and adequate information should be allowed to make information available.
Okay, so I'm aware that the sponsors of this particular bill have said major reasons for coming up with this decision, this particular law, is to limit the kind of information that is spread across the country, fake news, to ensure that credible and accurate information is what is going out there. So they see it as a form of gatekeeping. Excellent,
which is not bad. If that is the aim, this bill should go on with some caveats, with some conditions.
Right.
So it's okay to regulate, but gagging is absolutely anti-democratic. Where indirectly you are gagging the press for saying that the information should be those who are qualified journalists should have a particular qualification. Meanwhile, those who are in political office should have lesser qualification. That is anti-democratic. That's not acceptable. It's against our fundamental human rights as people and freedom of the press itself. So those are the things that need to be guarded against. And also, we should find a way that this bill won't just go with the way it's going to be presented, the way it's being presented right now. Some things need to be removed, and they should put some measure of control in place to see that, okay, we want to guard against fake news, against wrong information and the likes of that, which can create some unrest in the populace. Let's find a better way to do that, not by I may not be a professional in journalism, but I may be good at information gathering. And those kind of things should not now limit me to say that I must be a professional to provide adequate news. Government should find a way of verifying and ensuring that they sanction appropriately those who are into fake news and inappropriate gathering of information. Okay, so at this point that the African Commission on Human and People's Rights has a meeting was held in the Gambia. At this point where this information has gotten to them, do you think that the federal government of Nigeria as well as the National Assembly would listen and put a pause or stop the passage of this particular bill? They will, because naturally we really don't have an influence in our sub-Sahara, our regional partners. And we have a strong influence in Africa and the rest of it. So it will have some impact because they now know that it is beyond Nigeria. Some other people are looking at it from outside of our shores. And if it's something that dwells within our borders, you might, and this is really something that the whole world is watching. Once these other countries, the neighboring countries are already telling us what to do, and why this thing should not go through, then I think a second look will be looked at that bill so that it doesn't just go through the way it is. So we'll be conscious of that. Okay. All right. Lastly, before I wrap it up on the conversation with you, let's just touch briefly on a conversation that has to do with open grazing. Now, Senator Abdullahi Adamu has asked the federal government to go ahead with his plan to recover the grazing routes in regards to the ban on open grazing, despite the fact that southern governors as well as well-meaning Nigerians have kicked against the open grazing route entirely. What do you make of this? And where do you see this headed? Like I said at the last review, okay, number one, the gazette for the open grazing that I said was done sometimes in the 60s. Yeah. That's over 55 years ago. Whatever the senator is bringing up right now is a confirmation that our leaders at times, maybe we need to re-educate them, one, and also we need to let them understand that is it lack of exposure? Because in today's world, open grazing is being condemned. Everybody's looking for ranching and the likes of that. So, well, I'm glad that it's just a voice of one senator speaking. And I know that quite a number of senators in the last 2 weeks also are either for or against open grazing. But this open grazing and going back 55 years back won't work. It will not fly. We got to ensure that whatever will create peace for every region of the country is what we should encourage. The South and Constitution has backed the Land Use Act. So I don't know where the federal government how this bill will fly without the constitutional provision for it to ensure that the governor who has a right over the lands in their territory for the usage of people within their domain will not just grant. And they are telling you that we don't want open grazing. So, and I think that is backed by law, and we should stand by that, and we should ensure, do whatever, if you need to lobby within National Assembly to ensure that the issue of the old Gazette coming alive in 2021, 51 years after, it is taking us back into the medieval ages. What about a situation where they come up with creation of a new grazing route? Would that actually fly? If they don't have to fall back to the one of the 60s and they come up with the creation of a new one? Definitely, Sarah, they will have to create a new route. You know why? Because population expansion has taken place, industrialization has taken place, a lot of things. So those routes, if they really exist, is it like a lot of things has taken over those routes? So they will create a new one. So you are creating a new one now. Will it not encroach on people's farm? Are people not already existing in that new routes? So there is a lot of things that that new route will generate. So right now, Nigeria, because of the state of insecurity and the elders farmers situation is one of it, cannot afford to. But let them present it. I would just say, let us have a look at where would this, how would this fly? Okay. The fundamental thing is that it must be backed by the law, and it must be acceptable by majority of the National Assembly members to say that we want to let this stay. Okay, and that's the way we'll see it. We look forward to see how this would eventually play out. Thank you so much, Henry Shofowora, for joining us on the review and for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you very much for having me.